morning, how are you? I hope you had a wonderful weekend. It was a bit wet, wasn't it? So you may have seen a few vids or maybe you got out there, whatever. I hope you enjoyed it. It is Monday, and today on this Monday, we're just going to start touching base with a few spirits. And you see the faxes have started coming through already. It comes from a Lorraine Williams. And she says, Mary, some years ago I chanced upon a spiritualist today at a local hall. There were about 40 spiritualists there to about 20 of us ordinary folk. She says, suddenly I was psychic, says Lorraine. No real effort. I told a woman all about her past life and I had never met her before. The question I have for your spiritualist this morning is, will I ever experience something of this nature again? Thank you, Lorraine. Consider it filed, because it just so happens that my first guest today is medium and healer Stephen Herman. Now, he's from Massachusetts and he has been in this, well, what I call business for many years now, even though he's only a young thing. He's only 35, you see. And we're going to be talking about the so-called spiritual world, and we're going to further the conversation in talkback. So stand by for that very shortly, 5 past. Princess Di did it. Nancy and Ronald Reagan probably still do it. And what is it they do? Well, all three of these people have at some stage utilised the ephemeral services of a spiritualist, a medium. So what do you think of this? My first guest has offered to stay for the entire show this morning, which is very kind of him, given he's on a very tight schedule. And he's going to help me with this morning's talkback, which is about you and your spiritual world. Are you a believer in this world? Do you think that you have the power to contact this world? Stephen thinks we all have some sort of psychic ability. It's just a case of it being trained. Well, I probably err more on the side of the skeptics. And may I share with you something that just happened to be in the paper yesterday? The New Zealand skeptic spokeswoman Vicky Hyde says she gives absolutely no credence whatsoever to the idea that all people have psychic abilities, let alone any one person. She says if you could do that, the world would be a much better place. We would have far few accidental deaths and more people would win lotto each week. And she goes on to say that Princess Diana's untimely death in Paris was a prime example of clairvoyance ineptitude, with many predicting that she would in fact marry Dodi and go on and have a couple of kids. And finally, she says if anything was going to resonate through the psychic world, that should have been clairvoyance throughout the world. They should have been screaming at her, Diana, do not get in that car. The question that we put to you today, contacting the spiritual world, your ability to get in touch with it. Is it fact? Is it fiction? Your stories, and also lots from my first guest this morning, Stephen Herman. 0800 888 255. The fax is 09 366 1663. Your position on this, warmly appreciated throughout the morning. Well, we're standing by to catch up with Stephen, but before we do that, let's first check out what the stars have in store for us.
Aries, taking others into your confidence today may bring about support from unexpected quarters. Taurus, mementos and reminders of the past stir up feelings, helping to bring closure to a chapter in your life. Gemini, Venus, goddess of love and good fortune, has moved into your sign, marking the start of a pleasurable month. Cancer, demands have been high on your time and energy, making the need to start a new fitness regime all the more pressing. No more excuses. Leo, your goals and desires are close at hand, Leos, but that extra push is needed to get you there. Virgo, Mercury, your ruling planet, graces your chart, bringing renewed clarity and sense of purpose. Libra, planetary influences help support any moves you make to improve any aspects of your relationships. Scorpio, delving deep into that bag of tricks of yours and pulling one out of the hat saves the day, Scorpios. Sagittarius, Cupid lines up his bow and shoots it your way today, Sagittarians. Capricorn, you normally sensible and level-hooved goats may be driven more by impulse today than you would normally feel comfortable with. Aquarius, Planetary influences encourage and add opportunities and good fortune to all your communications and conversations today. Pisces, get the routine matters of life out of the way so you can spend more time doing what it is you really enjoy. For more astrological information, phone 0900 92000.
If you have ever been to a medium and been told something about yourself that there is absolutely no way anyone else should know, you'll understand that there are things that happen in this world and maybe in another world that are really hard to explain. Well, my first guest, he says he works in both of these worlds. Joining me today is minister, medium and healer. He is the Reverend Stephen Herman, and it's my pleasure to welcome him to Good Morning. Stephen, good morning.
It's real nice to be here.
Is it?
Yeah, I love New Zealand. I've
You
been here
love
only a couple
New
days,
Zealand.
but it's excellent.
Thank you very
The
much
people
indeed.
are so nice.
Well, it's nice to meet you. And in fact, Stephen and I had lunch yesterday just to sort of get acquainted, because we thought it was the sort of area where, you know, probably in our best interest if we had some history, albeit only 24 hours, but still. Let's talk about your beginnings, okay? You say that you were 2 when you first realised that you had some power. Now, what sort of power was that?
Well, everyone is psychic, everyone is mediumistic, and going back to when I was quite small, I always was open to the spirit world. I'm able to hear spirit, I'm able to see spirit. Now, at the time when I was 2 years old, I communicated with my grandfather on my mother's side. Of course, at the time, I'd never met this individual because he was deceased. You know, before he would have passed over before I was born.
Okay, so what were you doing at the time? Were you lying in your cot? Were you having baked beans? I mean, what was going
Well,
on?
I actually had what's referred to as an out-of-body experience, and I was able to actually see this individual visually, what he looked like. I was able to hear his voice. He came through and began to speak to me, and also said different things that he wanted me to relate to my mother at the time.
And so did you relate these things to your
Yes,
mother?
I did.
And what sort of things were they?
Just to say hello and to touch in with her. You know, now at the time, you can imagine being 2 years old, that's something which, on an intellectual or mental type of level, you're really not going to completely understand the significance of it.
That's right.
But that's something which is quite common for very small children to have happen.
How did your mother react to this?
Well, you know, she, at the time, actually, I thought that it was God talking to me, which sounds quite ridiculous, but in my own juvenile mind, that's the conception that I had.
I think we must emphasise the word juvenile here. You were 2,
Yes, I was 2
Stephen.
years old.
I mean, the majority of people do not even remember being 2. It seems somewhat exceptional that you have such a strong memory of this moment.
I can remember back to when I was 1,
You can
2. I
remember
can remember
one.
dreams I had. I can remember all different types of things very vividly.
Now, you were raised in Massachusetts.
Yes.
And Massachusetts is renowned for being very, very liberal.
Yes.
Do you think that this very liberal environment had an enormous bearing?
Well,
all
it
of
certainly
this?
helped me to be very open-minded and progressive in my views, you know, politically and socially. And I think in a theological sense as well. That's one thing about spiritualism as a religion. It's very universal in accepting truth within all religions.
So how did this power of yours, this ability to sort of touch base with what I'm describing as the spiritual world, would that be fair? The
Yes,
spiritual world.
yes.
How did these powers mature as you matured?
Well, the thing is people who are mediumistic or psychic tend to be artists, they tend to be musicians. They're people who are very in touch with feeling and sensing. Now, you can be completely very open in this way, but at the same time, the training that needs to go into it is also very important.
So what sort of training did you undergo?
Well, we have, within the spiritualist church system, we have a whole curriculum or system of education for training mediums.
Okay, so what did you do?
Oh, you sit in different types of classes, and you go to study through an intellectual type of sense. Now, for the ministry, we have a seminary. We have different courses and examinations.
So what do you learn?
Well, you learn basically the mechanics of spirit communication, how it works, what are the conditions, how does it operate. You learn about the ethics, the responsibility of it. You also learn about working on yourself. As a religion, spiritualism has the religious aspect, it has the philosophical aspect of it, and you also have the science. So it's all three. And it's not something like fortune telling. It's not like one of these 900 psycho hotlines.
Because you've got to admit that the way you tell a story, a lot of people will be thinking the man is a flake.
Absolutely, people are going to think that. But the thing is if we examine our own lives, every single person has this ability. Everyone has the ability to touch into energy and to be sensitive.
Well, you see, naturally, but you see, I call that human intuition. You know, I'll have a gut feeling about something, and I think that that is entirely human, that I should really follow this particular career course, or I should really ring that friend. I just get a sense
Well,
that things
that's part of what it is.
But you see, I think that's where it stops and starts, to be honest.
Well, it's totally different. See, someone who is psychic, there's a big difference between that and a medium, because someone who's psychic is able to tune into energy. They're quite sensitive that way. Now, someone who's a medium is able to discern people in the spirit world, who they are, what they look like, and bring through specific facts, specific details that only the individual receiving the messages is going to know about. And in many cases, they might not be aware of it.
Well,
they might have to check it out later on, and then
I
they find
think the
out.
proof is in the pudding. Are you in any position at this juncture to tell me a little about me, so that I can just get a sense as to whether or not we're on the right course here? Because I have an open mind, but I'm seeing is believing.
Now, in terms of working with with this type of mediumship, in terms of working right now on the show, right now I'm turned off.
You're turned off?
Yes, I'm turned off.
But you were turned off yesterday when we sat and had coffee in the Atomic Cafe. When are you turned on, Stephen?
When I'm working with spirit under certain types of conditions and certain types of environment, because one of the major important things when we're working with this type of work is the discipline that goes with it.
What sort of discipline is required?
Well, it's turning it on and turning it off. In other words, if you just walk around literally opened up all the time, it's very important the quality of the work, and it's very important the reverence that goes along with it.
So how do I know when you'll be turned on?
Well, it's obviously if I was in a working type situation,
Isn't
you'd
this
see
working?
me work. Well, it's talking about what it is, and it's educating people and reaching people, and that's what's really important.
I just thought for legitimacy more than anything, it would be a great idea if we had a moment here. I'm keeping myself entirely open. You can
Right.
do what you want with me, but I just think for the benefit of those that err on the side of skeptical, it might be a good idea.
I suppose I could, open up. Now, the only thing is with this type of show, given the time types of limitations, that we have to actually get into it. That's something which isn't necessarily the most conducive type of atmosphere.
Well, you very kindly have agreed to stay, so hopefully by 12 o'clock we may have been able to generate something.
Yeah, no, it's very good, though, because what I want to encourage with people who are watching your show, that people are psychic, that these questions, what happens after we die, where we go, and that you can communicate with people in the spirit world, loved ones who've gone on. And the thing is, it isn't like we're calling up the dead, because they're very much around and about us all the time, working with us and helping us. And we see that within all the different traditions and world religions, there are what we call guardian angels, or that kind of understanding. And that's part of it. As a medium, we're sensitive. We're able to attune our minds through training and through the sensitivity to discern spirit.
I mean, that's all very well, and
Yes.
you've kind of repeated yourself, and I hear what you say.
Right.
I suppose for my benefit, because I err on the side of skeptical, I'd like to see some proof, but as I say, we've got till midday, so we'll see how we
Right,
go.
we'll see what
You
happens.
also describe yourself as a healer. What do you do in terms
Well,
of healing?
healing is a type of mediumship in which energy from the spiritual world is channeled through the healer. The healer within themselves they're only participating in the process of healing. We know that the teacher Jesus practiced the laying on of hands. We see this throughout the different world's traditions. And one thing that everyone does have this energy field, the aura around and about them, and something that people even out watching the show can do is they can just rub their hands together. And you can even do this now,
okay.
too. Rub
All
your
right.
hands
So
together.
this is the demo
And as
time.
you're rubbing your hands together,
Yeah,
you feel this tingling, you feel this warmth, and you actually will feel, as you begin to move the hands apart, a heat, tingling type of sensation.
There's probably a very sound biological reason for that.
Well, there's different
It's called
types of
friction.
energies. There's friction, there's electromagnetic fields, but there's also on a more subtle type of level. Now, if we look within the Eastern tradition, such as in Chinese medicine or the Vedic, the yogic tradition, we find the understanding of this life energy. That's when we have the acupuncture system and things of this sort.
Okay.
And-
Well, yes.
And so the more sensitivity that someone's able to cultivate that, they actually increase their own awareness of it. It's the same thing with being able to hear spirit, because in the beginning, you're not going to be able to tell your own thoughts from what's actually coming through, and there's a difference.
Well, it sounds like we're moving into a territory of manipulating the mind. You know, you can believe what you want to believe.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can be deluded.
Look, at this stage, Stephen, given that you're going to be here till midday, I mean, we've got lots of opportunities to talk on this matter. So at this stage, I will let you go and literally collect your thoughts and do what you need to do. And just explain to people that in Talkback today, we are going to be talking about exactly what Stephen has been on about. Contacting the spirit world. I mean, Stephen is a very firm believer that you have psychic powers, that you have the ability to touch base with your spirit world. Do you think this is fact, or do you think it is fiction? You tell me. And your stories. Lots of stories and lots of faxes. 0800 888 255. The fax is 09 366 1663. Let's get into the spirit world. Will we? And just a wee reminder that I have a guest from Massachusetts. He is the Reverend Stephen Herman, who is dealing in this area at a career level. Okay, so if you've got any questions that you'd like to fire his way, please do. We're going to be starting in Papamoa. Good morning, Tracy. How are you?
Good morning, Mary. I'm fine.
Great.
I'm fine. Hey, I actually think I hate to say this because I'm a skeptic from way back, but I actually think there is some fact to this clairvoyancy spiritualist, because several years ago I actually witnessed a seance, and I know everyone says, oh gosh, you know, seances are really bad, and I thought that. But I witnessed one with a group of friends and family. Now, they got the Scrabble board out and they did all this thing and all this holding hands and all that whatnot. But basically it did spell out a name, and it spelled out this name, Shandolan. And it kept on spelling out this name. And all of us sat there and thought, you know, what on earth was going on? So we all left basically feeling like it was a load of whatnot. And the next day, there was an article in the New Zealand Herald about the IRA bombing in Dublin. And it showed a photo of a man who was killed in his car, and his name was Shandolan.
You don't think it's just sheer coincidence?
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought that, but I thought, gosh, you know, we're here in New Zealand, and that was over in Ireland, and that's, you know...
Well, Tracy, let's put it to Stephen. You've got to admit that a lot of this boils down to coincidence, doesn't it, Stephen?
Well, it depends. If a medium is working with spirit, they're going to bring through specific facts and specific details that you're going to recognize. So the thing is if you, for example, were to go to a medium for a reading, or anyone out there who's watching the show, the medium, if they're tuned into spirit, they're going to bring through information that only you know about, that you're going to be able to recognize.
Thank you.
And that within itself should basically satisfy things.
Great. I'm very much looking forward to Stephen being turned on. It's his language, not mine, so that he can do a bit of a reading here. But you don't kind of deal in predictions necessarily. You're just going to like touch base with someone.
I want to make a few things clear. The first thing is it's not fortune telling. We create our own future through how we're living right now in the present. Now, if someone's grandmother is coming through from the spirit world, it's not just for the person who's receiving the communications from the grandmother. It's also there might be things that she needs to get across to help her growth.
Okay. Right, well, we've got till midday. Fingers crossed. Yeah? Zoe, how are you this morning?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Good.
Good. I just wanted to ask, basically, I'm not really a skeptic. I think I've got my eyes open to it. But I think that there is definitely some truth in psychic ability. But I think there's also a lot of charlatans. So I just wanted to know how we'd be able to tell if somebody is actually a real psychic or somebody's just kind of in it for the cash.
How do you sort it?
Well, the first thing is the person talking a bunch of rubbish? Can you relate to the information that they're talking about? And as I say, if someone describes your grandfather, details that only you know about, or maybe you don't even know about it, and then you ask someone else within the family, that right there is going to be very convincing, so to speak. Now, a lot of times people who are phony, they are going to give you a bunch of rubbish. And obviously, if someone's not turned on or tuned into the spirit world, you know, that's pretty much going to be apparent. But the average layperson, because they don't really understand the mechanics or what the process is, they're not always going to be able to tell the difference.
We'll be putting you to the test.
And that's why the education is very important about what this is, which is really why I'm very pleased to be in this show, because the more information that people have, you should be skeptical. You should always question things. Okay. You know, we don't want to be an idiot. We want to investigate with an open mind.
Thank you. Kim, how are you this morning?
I'm just great, thank you very much.
Good.
Look, I think I can answer Zoe's question. I actually attend a spiritual awareness course every Monday night here in Rotorua, and I think the biggest misconception about psychic awareness is that, okay, psychic awareness is a gift, but spirituality is can open anyone's awareness. And
well, it's a faith, isn't it?
That's right, and spirituality is actually a lifestyle. meditation, prayer, positive thinking, exercise, and eating well. Now, those 5 things will open anyone's mind to messages that are brought by our guides, by our guardian angels, by those who are around us to help us out. Now, as far as Zoe is concerned, there are a lot of charlatans, and I totally agree. If you go along to a medium or a clairvoyant, you can tell that they are spiritually in tune, that their messages are quality messages, because they will be following those 5 principles. They will be spiritually aware as well as psychically aware.
Thank you, Kim. Nice to hear from you, all the way from Rotorua. We've got more faxes, more of your phone calls later on. If you just tuned in, this gentleman here is Reverend Stephen Herman, and he calls himself a spiritualist medium. Okay, take what you will from that. You can see the question, you can see that what we're talking about today. If you want to join in the conversation, you can later on. Talkback time, well, it has happened, but not with me. No. The manager of the Tanoa band, whom you're about to hear from, is a woman by the name of Sulu Anai. And Stephen Herman was talking to her in the green room, and he said he felt something. What is that something? Let's check it out. Good morning, Sulu. This is all a bit impromptu, isn't it?
But yes.
Thank you very much indeed. It's great to have you here, because Stephen's having a few difficulties with me because I don't have any spirits or something.
Well, I think it's more appropriate to touch in with her.
Okay.
I go where they want me to go.
You go where the spirits tell you to go. Well, do your magic.
All right. Do you want to just give a little feedback? I have never met you before.
No, I'm here with the band. It's come by as a shock, and I'm on TV. What do you know?
Do you want to describe a little bit about what I was relating to you when we were sitting earlier on?
Earlier on, when you came to me, he was saying that there were spirits around me, and he was talking to me about an old lady, and with all the jars trying to fill up with jelly-like type of things. And I had a shock because this jelly thing is in color, is red, very dark red. And my grandparents are in the island of Tuvalu, and they do this, it's called the kaleve, which is the jelly sweet jar, and they put all of them in jars. And he was saying that he's with me. He was talking about somebody chopping woods and chopping these things. And I says, well, I don't know anybody that's going in who's chopping here and there. But what he was referring to is the problems and the everyday life. That there were people around me that I always work with, and wanting a lot out of me.
Well, Stephen, I mean,
yes.
Is it not just fortuitous? I mean, if they're doing this sort of, just going back to your grandparents in the jelly business, if they're doing that in the islands anyway, I mean, that's a good stab in the dark. And as for troubles, don't we all have troubles of some description?
Yes, he also mentioned a man that was around me, and this man had problems with down the area, this area of, and my father passed away because of that problem. And I was saying to him, and he says this man was around us when we were talking at the time. And I was quite shocked.
To be on TV, or to have this gentleman identify?
Probably a little bit of both.
Yes.
I started reading for another gentleman in the band as well, and brought through, I felt it was his grandfather. I got very specific with some of the things as well, but he's a little bit too nervous to come on. So.
I know, well, he's a performance
he's a performance, but to come up here, puts him on the spot.
Right. Oh, well, thank you very much indeed for coming in. We appreciate that, Sulu. And Stephen, I don't know, what do I say? Congratulations, I'm not sure.
Well, no, they're still with her. I mean, I'm happy to read a little bit more for her so people can actually experience it. Now, I'm just going to have to try. I just want to, if you can just, let me just hold your hands, please. Okay, I'm just going to tune in. And, the first thing I am feeling is I feel that I'm still with the lady that does come through here from the spirit side of life. Now, as she does come through here, she's talking about the present conditions right now within your physical plane life, right? And I want to say here that we have to take a real hard stance. We have to take a very hard position in terms of dealing with these people that I was describing before here. Now, the gentleman, I want to go back to a gentleman here from the world of the spirit, and then I'm going to relate a little bit more about the lady who I felt was a grandmother, because I'm actually being shown bulldozers with this man. Now, this is in a literal, actual sense, because I feel he would have actually worked with these things. I feel it's almost like I have a lot of logs, like where we would have chopped down the trees. Do you understand? They're quite tall, quite long types of trees, as I'm being shown. And there's something significant with this brook builders, because I feel it would have been used within this context to clear out the land, so to speak, here. Now, I'm very spiritual as they're coming through here from the spirit side of life, and they seem to be actually doing some type of traditional type of dance here for you right now. But this is what the lady's talking about right now here within your own life, because your spirituality needs to be imparted. It needs to be directed to those around and about you, because it's very much that they are going to listen to you. Now, we're talking also again about that paste or whatever, this jam type of substance that has been shown, but I'm also being shown very large types of melons here, because now they're quite big. Now, I'm aware of the watermelons that we get in the States, but these are actually quite larger in the way I'm being shown, because I actually feel it's almost like I'm sawing, and I seem to be cutting these types of things here. And now I want to be able to spit out the seeds. You know, I want to be able to concentrate more on the sweetness, so to speak, within the situations here. And I felt also I'm going within my own solar plexus right now, because in dealing with, you know, people who are quite much in a very negative type of space, there's only one way to deal with them, right? We have to be quiet. We have to go, and this man shows me a chainsaw too, and I feel I would have used this, but it's almost like with vines, wood of some sort, that would have, almost like it's extra hard. You understand, if I were hitting it with an axe, it would actually almost even, it's like rock, is what he's saying here. And I don't know what type of wood this is, but they actually would have had to use this chainsaw. And I feel here as this gentleman, I'm aware of my left arm, because I almost like I can't use this. Do you understand this? I would have actually had to keep this within some type of brace. Do you understand this? He actually would have worn this quite a bit here. So he had to actually do everything with his right arm is what he's talking about here. And I found with the grandfather type vibration. Do you want to give me some feedback? I don't know you at all. I've never met you. Correct?
Maybe, Stephen, if I can just interrupt at this stage, only because of time more than
anything.
Because
I'm getting spirit right now.
You are?
Yes, they're right here. Yes, this is where it's coming from.
Fantastic.
So,
can you identify with some of the Zulu?
The first one in tidying up in the logs clearing.
Yes.
Is I've just bought some land in up here.
Yes.
And I haven't talked to any one of our family except for my eldest sister and my mother, that she'll be going back the end of this year to clear the land.
Great.
And build on it.
Yeah. And how about the watermelon business and all the rest of it?
The watermelon, I can't put it into.
Okay, and the arm?
The sweetness of the.
The arm?
I'm not quite sure there with my, because I didn't live with most of my great-grandfathers, and maybe one of them would have been the one that he's talking about.
Thank you. Look, I might just have to stop you at this point. Maybe we can come back in our next set of phones on this matter. It's just time more than anything. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Sulu, very much indeed. Well, you take what you will from it, contacting the spirit world. Stephen says we all have the power. Do you have the power? Do you think it is baloney, or do you think it is totally legit? 0800 888 255 and the fax 093 661 663 for later in the show. It is